Longtime Browns beat reporter Tony Grossi with how he thinks the Browns have handled the quarterback position this year.
It's an amateurish organization. The way they have handled the quarterbacks from the moment they drafted Shador, they were all doomed to get fired because of it. And that's what's going to happen because it has descended into a blank show, really. It's an embarrassment to the rest of the guys who are playing their hearts out that they're left with that most important position. I've never seen it mishandled worse than what we're seeing.
So welcome in Scott Petrak, Browns beat reporter for the Chronicle, Telegram, Brownzone.com. Scott, I don't know that I would say it's been mishandled as poorly as any, but it certainly seems to have changed several times. There isn't like a clear, concise, this is kind of what we're doing.
Well, I think that's because you don't know because you don't have a guy, right? When you don't have that number one guy, it's a lot easier to be knocked from one solution to the other or change plan to plan. You know, if you have Pat Mahomes or Josh Allen or even a young guy like Drake May, right? You know that it's his. When you don't have that answer and you're trying to find that answer, it's really difficult. And I'm not saying the Browns handled it the right way. You know, I think the longer we get into this, or the more we get away from the Kenny Pickett trade, it makes less sense to me. Especially if any part of the goal is to win this year and win games, and I believe that should always be part of the goal. And Kevin Stefanski talks about it, and Andrew Berry would talk about it. Then it makes sense to have a veteran quarterback on the roster, and they did for 4 weeks or 5 weeks, and then they traded Joe Flacco, and I understand that because they had made a commitment to the youth, and that if it wasn't going to be Dylan Gabriel, it was going to be Shedeur Sanders. But when you're getting as good a defensive play as the Browns have been getting, and you're not getting anything from your offense and your quarterback play, then it's easy to say, yes, they'd be better served with the veteran, and it's impossible to argue that. And even if you wanted to go from Dylan Gabriel to Shedeur Sanders, if you had just the buffer of Kenny Pickett to play yesterday in the second half, I think there's a better chance you win that game, even if it's just serving as the in-game backup.
Yeah. The Kenny Pickett thing is the one that's really a head-scratcher. And again, I don't get me wrong. I'm not saying this guy is a franchise quarterback. He's been there. He's won some games. It would just be interesting to see what the offense looks like with a guy who has won some games in the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he was any kind of long-term answer. But to go be your number one guy in the offseason, right, the first guy they got, and there was some feeling in the organization that he would be the starter week one. Then he, pulls a hamstring, and all of a sudden it goes from, well, he's going to be the starter, or at least has a good chance to be the starter, to he's only worth a fifth-round draft pick. And I get that they value those fifth-round draft picks more than I do. But it just feels like that's where the organizational thinking can be changed maybe too quickly. And you jump from one to the other. And maybe it was, for them, in their eyes, Dylan Gabriel showed them enough that they were comfortable with him being the guy. But as we go through this chain of events and we talk about Sundays and yesterday's second half, you go, okay, a veteran with some experience probably gives you a better chance to score when you enter halftime with the 16-10 lead and then don't score any points in the second half.